Mount Everest's peak is one of the most dangerous places on the planet, with deathly cold temperatures, unpredictable weather systems, ice falls and crevices that can collapse at any minute, and oxygen levels that are so low they can't sustain human life. Even the best climbers, equipped with high-end gear, with expert local Sherpas by their side, experience difficulty. Over 330 people have died since records began trying to reach the top of Earth's highest mountain because of avalanches, falls, frostbite, or just plain disappearing. In the death zone, decisions become harder to make, and climbers have to battle confusion and fatigue while managing the constant stress and fear of the environment. So how did this cat manage to do it? In order to understand just how impressive this feat is, we need to appreciate just how difficult the conditions up in Everest are. Now, as someone who's climbed a mountain, it is tough. It's a physical and a mental battle. I climbed Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, East Africa, which is the world's tallest freestanding mountain. A freestanding mountain is one that is not part of a mountain range, like Everest is part of the Himalayas. And Kilimanjaro's height is 5,895 meters, which is tall, but it's still considered one of the easy mountains because of the environment around it. In fact, Anne Lorimore holds the world record for the oldest person to successfully climb Kilimanjaro, aged 89 years old. She reached the top in just over 12 hours. But Everest is a completely different beast. For one, it's the highest point in the world, standing at 8,848.86 meters. And we have to be specific because China and Nepal are very anal about this. In 2020, they actually revised the height measurement using the latest GPS technology. And this new figure is something they both agree on. And when you're at that elevation, the temperature is mind-numbingly cold. Temperatures can drop as low as minus 60 degrees, but with the hurricane force wind speeds that exceed 200 kilometers an hour, it actually feels like it's below minus 80 degrees. So now we know how tough it is. Let's get back to this cat. Well, a few years ago, National Geographic and Rolex, yes, Rolex, the watch company, they partnered to do trailblazing scientific research and expeditions. The Perpetual Planet Everest Expedition is the most comprehensive single scientific expedition that's ever been carried out on Everest. An international team of multidisciplinary scientists from 8 different countries, as well as 17 Nepalese researchers, conducted trailblazing research in 5 areas of science, which are critical to our understanding of the environment. This was biology, glaciology, meteorology, geology, and mapping. The team did some crazy things like install 2 of the highest weather stations in the world, and they also collected the highest ever ice core recorded. If you don't know, ice cores are long cylinders of ice which are drilled from ice sheets and glaciers. They're basically like frozen time capsules which we can study to understand how the environment was at that point in time. If you watched True Detective Night Country recently, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Dr. Tracy Simon was one of the people leading the biology field team of scientists in this huge expedition. And the team were collecting environmental samples from 2 locations in Sagarmatha National Park. This is a huge UNESCO World Heritage Site in Nepal, situated in the Himalayas, where Everest is located. Fun fact, the Nepali name for Mount Everest is Sagarmatha, which means goddess of the sky. This area is home to wildlife like the red fox and the snow leopard. But these scientists found 2 scat samples. Scat samples are animal poop, which didn't belong to either of these species. These scat samples were found about 6 kilometers apart at an elevation of 5,110 and 5,190 meters. And after some DNA analysis, they found genetic evidence of this cat's presence in the eastern Himalayas for the first time. And it wasn't just one of these cats. Through DNA analysis, they actually found evidence of 2 of these cats. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, a sub to the channel would be perfect. So evidence of this cat up in Everest is interesting for 2 reasons. First is because unlike the snow leopard, which is also on Everest, this cat is not a rare species. At least not anymore. It's got a widespread range and assumed large population, and it's been categorized as least concern on the IUCN Red List since 2020, which basically means that it's plentiful in the wild. Secondly, Sagarmatha National Park is open to the public, and it's been accessible for ages, and the number of visitors it gets each year increases. And we've known about this specific cat since 1776, but no one up until recently has seen it up on Everest. So what is this cat? Well, the DNA evidence the scientists found belongs to the Pallas cat. And it's the first time in history we've been able to document evidence of this species being able to survive the conditions up at that elevation. The Pallas cat, or the Manul as it's commonly known, is a fascinating small wildcat species found predominantly in Central Asia. Countries like Mongolia, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Nepal, India, but also China, Russia, and Afghanistan. It's named after the German naturalist who found it in 1776, Peter Simon Pallas. And by looking at it, you immediately notice its defining feature: the amount of fur it has. The Pallas cat has the longest and densest fur of any cat. Its thick plush coat is highly adapted to the cold temperature and ranges from a grey colour to a straw colour, allowing it to blend seamlessly into its rocky surroundings. Interestingly, unlike most other feline species, which have slits for pupils, Pallas cats actually have round pupils, which is an uncommon trait they share with humans and other big cats like lions and tigers. This leads to somewhat comical facial expressions. In terms of behaviour, like many wild cats, Pallas cats are quite solitary. They establish and defend territories that can span up to 4 kilometres, with their primary diet consisting of rodents and birds. But they are opportunistic feeders, so they won't say no to reptiles, insects, or even carrion when it's available. Despite its wide range, the Pallas cat's lifespan is actually shorter than other cats. In captivity, they can live up to around 11 years old, but out in the wild, they don't often live longer than 6 years. This is due to the high rate of kitten mortality and the prevalence of disease, which are often exacerbated by the harsh environmental conditions in which they live. The Pallas cat has also been long hunted for its fur, especially in places like Mongolia, China, and Kazakhstan. In Mongolia, hunting of the Pallas cat is still permitted for household purposes. According to Mongolian folklore, the Pallas cat protects the nomad's horses from predators. So what have we learned with this new finding? Well, firstly, there's evidence of the Pallas cat living up in Everest alongside animals that we already know about, like the red fox or the snow leopard. 2 is that through the DNA analysis of the poop, we also identified the cat's primary prey, which included pikas and the occasional mountain weasel. All of this further illuminates the rich biodiversity of the alpine ecosystem and extends the known range of the species in eastern Nepal. And scientists are already thinking about future research, everything from camera trap surveys and collecting additional scat samples, which would help us better understand how many Pallas cats are actually living up there, their range, density, and their diet in Sagarmatha National Park. So now you know about the cat that conquered Everest. If you want more cat science, click subscribe and check out this video next.